All right, welcome back everybody. Some more fun videos on the Old Testament. This is the special edition one. We're going to talk about Noah. So a couple things that are fun to talk about with Noah is there's some other stories that we learn about him that are not in the Old Testament that are really fun. So I wanted to give you some insight into some of these. This is actually an excerpt here that I pulled. There's a few different sources that are pulled together for this that I believe I got most of this from Hugh Nibley's books, but he quotes a lot of different sources, and so I've just kind of pulled all those together here as well. But let's talk about this, Noah and his garment. There's some really interesting things that we get to talk about here discussing this garment, because it's something that, again, it's not much in the Old Testament. We hear the story of Ham, who stole the garment, and then his Japheth and Shem brought it back to Noah. But there's a lot more to this story, a lot more going on with this. And so I wanted to do a little bit of a special video on this. So here's some really fun things from different apocryphal and Jewish sources about Noah and his garment. He says, the book of Jasher tells us that after the death of Adam, the garments were given to Enoch. Now, when we talk about garments, we're talking about the coats of skin that Adam and Eve were given. Those were garments representative of the holy priesthood. And so they were seen as very, very sacred and important because they represented priesthood authority. So let's see, and the son Enoch was given the garments, the son of Jared, and when he was taken up to God, he gave them to Methuselah his son. And at the death of Methuselah, Noah took them with him in the ark. And as they were leaving the ark, Ham stole those garments from Noah, his father. And he took them and hid them from his brothers. Then Ham secretly gave the garments to his favorite son, Cush, who handed them down in the royal line. This is Jasher 7:25-29. We meet this idea of the stolen garment often. We are told in one document that the garment of Adam was owned also by Noah and Ram, the brother of the biblical Jared. But the tradition is that Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the skin garment of his father, showed it to his brothers outside, made copies of it, and claimed it for himself. According to Rabbi Eliezer, Noah came to himself and saw what had happened, that Ham had stolen his garments. The world used nakedness as the word skin garments. The same word is simply derived or secondary meaning. The word means skin covering. When Noah found out what he had done, he cursed him and said, because you grabbed it ahead of time, Ham, you cannot have the priesthood until the end of time. Meanwhile, I will give the government to Shem and part of it to Japheth, but you cannot have it. Why? Because Noah had anticipated that Ham would get it illegally. To show that he was justified, Ham's son tried to fake it and caused a great deal of confusion thereby. In the Midrash Genesis, Rabbi Johanan says, Shem began the good deed, they returned the garment to their father, and then Japheth came and hearkened unto him. Therefore Shem was granted that talit, and Japh with the pallium, the large cover or cloak with clasp and buttons on the shoulder. Talit here means a fringe garment. Rabbi Yohanan means that the reward of Shem, the ancestor of the Jews, was the precepts of the fringes and the garments, while that of Japh representing the Japheth, representing the Greeks, was the pallium or the cloak, betokening his dignity. The Midrash goes on to tell us that as a reward they received from God prayer cloaks, while Ham was denied the protection of the garment because he had stolen it. This was the priesthood that he was trying to get illegally. Rabbi Yohan, whose dad says in the Perkti, Rabbi Eliezer, the coats which the Holy One made for Adam and his wife were with Noah in the ark. When they went forth from the ark, Ham, the son of Noah, brought them forth with him and gave them as an inheritance to Nimrod. When he put them on, all beasts came and prostrated themselves before him, because this was the garment which Adam had in the Garden of Eden, And the beasts of all reverenced him because he had dominion over them as long as he acted as God would act. Therefore the sons of men made him king over themselves. He fooled everybody into thinking he had the priesthood because he had the garment. The Apocalypse of Abraham says, Cush loved Nimrod, the son of his old age. Cush got it from Ham, and gave him that garment in which God had once clothed Adam as he was forced to leave paradise. This garment passed down from Adam to Enoch to Methuselah to Noah, who took it into the ark. He misused it and secretly handed it to his son Cush, whose son Nimrod, while wearing this garment, was invincible and irresistible. The garments enabled him to conquer the world and proclaim himself its ruler, so that mankind offered him worship. There is a profound mystery concerning these garments, which is one of the secrets of the ancients kept to themselves. Now, what happened then, basically? According to Jewish lore, Nimrod had it. Then Esau was jealous of Nimrod, who was another great hunter. He lay in ambush, slew Nimrod, took the garment from him, and brought it home. This garment was the birthright which Jacob got from Esau, who got it back again. This was the garment of Jacob, the garment of Ham. Nimrod, Amraphel, king of Babel, went forth with his people on a great hunt. At that time he was jealous of the great hunter Esau. As Nimrod approached with 2 attendants, Esau head out and cut off Nimrod's head before the other 2. Esau then fled with the valuable garment of Nimrod, which had made him victorious over the entire world. Then he ran exhausted to Jacob after hiding the garment. So Book of Jasher 27, 2 through 12, you can look that up. That was the deal. He was willing to sell it in a financial sense. In another account, Nimrod, the king of Babel, went hunting in the field. Esau was observing Nimrod all the day, for jealousy had formed in his heart. He saw against Nimrod. Esau he basically laid a trap. He laid wait for him and cut off his head. Then he took the viable garment of Nimrod, because Nimrod prevailed over the land, and ran and concealed it in his house. This is in the Legend of the Jews 1:3:18 and 3:19. This was the birthright which he sold to Jacob, and there are other versions of the same thing. In the Perk de Eliezer says, Esau, the brother of Jacob, saw the coats of Nimrod, and his heart he coveted them. He slew him and took them from him. When Esau put them on, he also became by means of them a mighty hero. And when Jacob went forth from the presence of Isaac his father, after receiving the blessing from Isaac, he said, Esau the wicked one is not worthy to wear these coats. So Jacob stole the government from Esau's tent, and he dug in the earth and hid the garments there. Egyptian priests, royalty, and the dead were all clothed in the classic skin garment of the Egyptian priesthood. The kaunaks of the Sumerians was a heavy skin garment, wholly unsuited to the climate of Babylonia, and has for that reason been taken as proof that the Sumerians came from the north. That's from George Barton's article, Whence Came the Sumerians? A part of the Apocryphal New Testament. Let's see. In 1939, amber statuette was found showing the king of Assyria wearing the insignia of the Jewish high priest. So that was interesting that there was influence in there too. In later times, the Egyptian priest wore no real leopard skin, but a close-fitting coat of fine linen in the form of a leopard skin. So the Syrian Christians said that the garment given to Adam was of cotton, the skin of the tree. Eliezer said this doctrine, they say, was known only to Moses, who called cotton skin because among trees it takes the place of skin. Hence the idea that John the Baptist took his clothes from trees. The Jews retained traces of the older garment in their phylacteries and in the sisith, the 4 strings that every Jew once had on the edge of his garment. So there's a ton of information about Noah and his garment. That there's a rich history and understanding that there's more to just the story of Noah than the flood. That's the main story they tell, but realize that he had the garments that were given to Adam and Eve and passed down, and then they later went down and eventually got to Jacob, who then of course gave them as a coat of many colors. to his son Joseph. So we follow this as kind of an idea of understanding the line of priesthood or high priest opportunities, basically. A couple of the other fun stories that come out of the Noah story is the one of glowing rocks. So this is something we really only hear about in the Book of Mormon, in the Book of Ether with the Jaredites, because the Jaredites come from the time of the Tower of Babel. They were around when Nimrod was the great king, and they were there during the destruction of the tower and the confounding of languages and things. That's where they come from. So the Book of Ether fits right here in around Genesis chapter 11, basically, right in that area around there. So that's the Book of Ether is a really old book, and they use the idea of glowing stones in there. But there's legends that are older that go back to Noah, that he had made stones that would shine. So when they opened that window that they talk about that was on the top of the ark, they could open up that window to let light in and air and things in when it wasn't raining, that he would have these stones, these crystals basically, that he had molten down, sitting there. So as the sunlight came through, they would refract the light into the rest of the ark, thus providing more light inside. And as it would do this, of course, then at night, these stones would glow, thus giving light at night. So they had a phosphorescence to them. There are naturally occurring stones that do this. Most of them are green, which is usually why your glow-in-the-dark items tend to be green. So they had this idea, and this legend is everywhere around us. When you start to think about magical green stones or sacred green stones, you realize that there's almost no ancient culture that doesn't have that in there somewhere. Whether that is the green jade of Asia, whether that's even just green emeralds through Egypt and Mesopotamia and other areas around there. We could look at turquoise or lapis lazuli as more of a bluish green, but still this idea of using a greenish type stone, or even copper when it gets tarnished turns green. So this idea is a really popular one, and a lot of these legends originate from the Noah story, basically. So Brother Jared had examples of what to do to make a glowing stone. And he took it a little step further and had the Lord touch him because he couldn't put a window in, which is interesting. You think about, that's the story that we get, is you can't put a window in the type of boats that they were building for the Jaredites, which is a window that they had in Noah's story. They had that window there so he could reflect the light through. Jared didn't have that. So they had to have something that glowed independent of the sun. And so they had the Lord touch them to do this. So it was really a really cool story. A lot of really good stuff in there. The idea of boats is really fascinating because the Jaredites, really the main stories they had and examples of boats was Noah's boat. And it says in there that they built a lot of boats to cross great bodies of water as they journeyed out of the area. So we'll go into more of that when we get into the Book of Ether and the Book of Mormon. So watch those videos for more information there. A lot of fun stuff that we hear, a lot of fun stuff. There's even stories that there was more than just Noah's immediate family in the ark, that he had a brother, Noah's brother, and his children were with him in the ark, one of his children being Melchizedek. So he was a young man at the time, and there's a possibility that they were there. I think it's in the first book of Adam and Eve. There's a story in there that talks about Melchizedek was a young man. Noah was told to get the body of Adam out of the cave. No, it's actually in the cave of treasure, sorry, because it goes along this. He went to the cave where they had all the ancient artifacts where Adam and Eve had lived, and they took the body of Adam and they built him a coffin, and he went on the ark with them to go. He was supposed to be, Noah was to transport him to a new place and then deposit his body in the earth in this new place that they're going to be going to after the flood. And so he was supposed to get some of the artifacts and get some of that stuff together and then take it with him. And so some fun stories about Melchizedek, and we're going to talk about those stories more when we get into his stories, which we're getting into here in the next couple of weeks. As we start to deal with Abraham, that's when we hear the most about Melchizedek, is around Abraham. So some more fun stuff. Stay tuned for those videos, and hopefully this is giving you some more examples and opportunities to learn more about the time of Noah. Thanks.